Hey, everybody, and welcome to An Action Filmmaking Podcast. I'm Tommy DiNucci. As always, I'm here with my co host, Mikey Messier. Today, we have a very fun topic that I think can kind of help anybody, whether you're involved in movies or not. But let's face it, Mike, you know it. Sometimes on set, things can get a little heated, tensions can run high. And if you're not careful, you're liable to say or do something that you might regret later on because you're angry. So today we're going to talk all about anger management and how to control those emotions and make sure you don't get yourself in a situation that you're going to feel, maybe I should have held back a little bit.
Tommy, this topic, when you started introducing it, it immediately makes me think of that famous Christian Bale audio from maybe 10 or 12 years ago. From
Yeah.
maybe it was from The Fighter or one of the Batman movies when he kind of lost his temper on a crew member and went a little temporarily insane, as they say. And he's a great actor, and look, we all have our moments, right? But I mean, this episode I think will be really good because I struggle with this, not just in movies, but sometimes in just traffic and everyday life situations, buddy. So I think we can explore this and maybe come out the other side of it a little less angry, a little less aggressive, more understanding to the human condition. Who knows? We'll see.
We're going to try and be a little bit relaxed. We're going to relax a little bit. We're going to talk about what it is that, triggers us into these rages and how we can kind of control it. But before we get into that, Mike, I heard that you lost your phone last week, which is just the shits. I mean, let me tell you, there is probably in 2024, losing your phone, it's like losing your whole existence for a little bit of time because everything we do is kind of filtered into that phone, emails, social media, text. So being without a phone for a week, whew, what was that like?
Well, it's actually I impressed myself more than I thought I would because there's a few places in this town that I can drive to now where I've actually memorized the traffic, so I wasn't as dependent on GPS for certain basic locations, movie theaters and coffee houses that I go to and so forth. So I did okay with that. And then but yeah, there's a lot of things, buddy, like I haven't been able to listen to the podcast while driving. All the apps, we've become so app dependent for discounts and customer bonus points and all that fun stuff that I like to partake in, and just getting my movie tickets and everything else, buddy. And just communication. I've been out of the loop with yourself and a few other good friends. And so hopefully today this phone arrives. It might come during the process of the show, in which case I'll have to take a quick break because I think I actually have to sign for this thing. Here's a quick tip,
Well,
buddy.
we've been missing you on the text chains, and we're glad to have you back. So if you got a dip during the show, folks at home understand that Mike's got a phone on the way.
Yeah, yeah. I did have a false alarm, buddy. I actually got a new phone on Friday. I actually purchased a 2G network phone. So they actually
That's
still sell those. I didn't even look to see. I assumed it was a 4G or 5G. But if you go on Amazon, you have
you
to.
got hoodwinked.
I got hoodwinked into a useless phone because 2G no longer even works in the United States. So
That's too
you
bad.
you got to check all the specs before you purchase
That
something.
is enough to make somebody very angry, and that's what the show is really all about. So we're going to get into that now. Mike, I thought that this was a fun topic because I've definitely gotten better at this over the years. There was a time, probably, maybe not even that long ago, maybe even like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even within the last 5 years, where I used to get, I used to allow things to get to me so much. And I used to let them really put me in a bit of a spiral to the point where, almost like I'm not a big golfer, but it's almost like they say when you're playing golf, like, don't let one bad shot ruin all the other shots. And
Right.
sometimes I'd get myself so angry that I'd find myself, I hit one bad shot. Now I'm shanking everything because I'm pissed. I'm on tilt. I'm in a bad mood. Suddenly, even the littlest things that you'd normally maybe just brush off are infuriating you. So I've had to learn over the years how to like control that feeling inside of me that makes me want to snap sometimes. And when you're on a movie set, we all know the pressure is so immense, and there's so much of a need to kind of get things done in a certain way on a certain timeline within a certain budget, and all those elements kind of just, if there was a thermostat in your body, that thermostat just starts getting cranked up and cranked up and cranked up and cranked up to the point where any little thing could set you off. So today we're going to try and talk about some ways that we can take a breath and not want to strangle someone.
Well, Tommy, speaking of breath, one thing I've learned just recently is an opening tip is have you heard of box breathing? Have you heard that term?
I have not.
Well, it's simple. It's something you can learn in a minute. Basically, you take 4 seconds to breathe in, hold your breath for 4 seconds, 4 seconds as you breathe out, and then after you've breathed out, another 4 second pause, and repeat. So it's like
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we're box
so
breathing now, everyone.
it's box breathing. So I recently learned that by listening to a podcast that I've been getting into, and then on YouTube, and then basically you just do that. It calms you. It helps your body. It helps your mind. And you can do it anywhere. You can be sitting at home watching a movie. You can be on a movie set making a movie. You can be playing your video games, doing whatever you're doing. You can employ the box breathing. It's basically 4 counts. 4 counts as you breathe in, hold it for 4 seconds. As you breathe out, 4 seconds. And then, basically a pause for 4 seconds and then start it up again.
Yeah,
So
you know what, Mike? I've actually heard about box breathing now that you mention it. It wasn't called box breathing, but I believe I saw one of those Instagram posts, but I think that that's actually a Navy SEAL technique. They have like breathing techniques for like when in stressful situations and how to kind of control yourself. So yeah, you got to remember to breathe. But let's check in and say what's up with some people before we tell some of our strategies. Stephen E is always here to say what's up. Good to see you, Stephen. Stephen says, the Ultimate Warrior. Nice. Mike the Warrior Messier repping the man from Parts Unknown. Stephen E. Tommy, the haircut turned back the clock. Oh, thank you very much, brother. I did shave my head. I decided that, once in a while you got to reinvent yourself.
sure.
And the summer's coming. And I love hair. I've always been like ever since I was a little kid, I was like, I had the big tub of LA Looks gel, hold number 7. And
Yeah.
I'd always, even as a little youngster, I always loved doing my hair. But I got to tell you, man, like, this is so fucking easy. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh wait, I'm done. So it's saving me money on shampoo, saving me
Sure.
time. It's all good. Paul Iannotti, what's up, Paul? Paul says, Tommy, you the man. What's up, guys? Good morning. Good morning to you, Paul. I appreciate you checking in on us and watching along with us here on this fine Tuesday morning. Stephen E says, I do the 4-7-8 breathing techniques. Breathing techniques, guys. See, that's something that I never really got into the breathing techniques, but what I found that I started to do, all right, ready? I have a little thing that I do that I'm going to share with just the And Action folks here. Not a lot of people know this about me. I think I've told you about this before, Mike, and I've told a few of my really close friends, but I do this weird thing that when someone's aggravating me or annoying me or saying some dumb shit that I would love to lash out on and correct them. But let's face it, guys, we've all realized it that sometimes, unfortunately, in this world that we're living in, you can get more heat from correcting someone than you can
Right.
from just letting it slide. So, like, one of the things that I've done to like help towards the anger management is I've learned to not have arguments with fools anymore. Like, I
Okay.
just don't do it. I just don't argue with fucking idiots. Meaning, if I use my better judgment to look at a person, talk with them for a little while, and that little bell goes off that says, this person's a fucking idiot, and they say something that bugs me or they say something that rubs me the wrong way, I used to take them to task. I used to feel as though it was my personal job to not only protect myself, but everybody around me. I had to protect them from this person's bullshit. And I felt as though it was my job to kind of right the situation. And I've learned now that, like, with certain people, you're never going to win the argument. You're never going to let them see the light. They're never going to want to see it your way. And they might even like go the opposite just because you're saying it. So I've learned, and I know this sounds a lot simpler than it is, but just don't argue with stupid people. If you deem
Yeah.
someone stupid, and use your own judgment, what's a stupid person? That's up to you, baby. Use your judgment. And if you find someone's just like kind of like less than on an intelligence level, don't even fuck with them because it doesn't matter.
Well, I like that policy, Tommy. And there's also not just stupid, but there's certain. What was the things that you weren't supposed to argue about? Was always a cliche: religion and politics, and I mean, there's so many things, but there's a whole industry for arguing. Sports radio is one that we enjoy, but there's also just on YouTube especially, there's so many things where people go to college campuses and change my mind about this, or people love to debate, people love to argue, and the reality is, Tommy, there's a lot of issues in the world that people are not going to agree on. But when you're trying to make a film, or you're trying to make a TV series, or your web series that's coming out, The Florist, there's people. I guess I would add a follow-up question to you directly, Tommy. With this policy, at times you're in a situation as a director, especially, where you're dealing with maybe cast members or crew members that you didn't necessarily assign. They came with the package. They're part of the production, that even though you're the director, you're not hand selecting every collaborator. Have you been in situations where you're kind of forced to work with people that you have a hard time gelling with? And if so, how does your strategy jive with that?
So if I'm put in a situation where I'm handed, I'm forced into a position to work with someone that I may not want to work with, it does make me angry in a sense. However, how I like to try to manage the anger in that situation is I almost make it a game and I say to myself, how do I win this person over? How can I get this person to kind of assimilate to my style and kind of become one with the philosophy? So in a sense, when that actually doesn't anger me as much. Like I think of that more as like a challenge. Like how can I mold this person into the system that I'm trying to put forth? Um, but yeah, I mean, it can definitely it can be challenging to work with someone creatively that you're mad at or that you have some kind of heat with. And that's why, again, I find that just kind of telling myself, like, okay, I don't really agree with this person. In my mind, I think they're stupid. I'll just come out and say it. But what I'm going to do is if they say that, like, this highlighter isn't yellow, this is a blue highlighter. Tommy, what are you talking about? This highlighter is blue. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to say, oh, is it blue? You know what? Silly me. It's blue. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Like, I'm not going to fucking argue with it anymore. That's kind of my point. Like, I would have sat there for 20 minutes explaining to you that this is clearly a yellow highlighter. Whereas now I've realized I just lost 20 minutes of my life trying
Right.
to explain something to a complete fuck. So now I just, yeah, yeah, sure. You know what? The highlighter's any color you like. Let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I mean, I've been in those situations too, and here's a nuanced thing. I think a lot of times for me, anger on a film set or a movie set can come from a feeling of disregard or disrespect, and I think sometimes there's these little, and maybe things have gotten better post pandemic, maybe they haven't, Tommy. But I remember a lot of times I was frustrated on film sets where there seemed to be this hierarchy between the director and the producer, and then the low level actors, like the background actors, and then the
Day
star
players.
actors, the day players. It seemed like almost like a schoolyard thing, and sometimes the industry reinforces that, where you have things like the non-union actors get this sloppy joe set up, and then the union actors get this refined meal with all the accompaniments. And it seemed like sometimes the film, or even signing paperwork, there's a union line, a non-union line, and yes, there's a reason for all that stuff. But sometimes it feels, Tommy, if I'm not mistaken, that the film industry kind of reinforced that caste system and that feeling of divisiveness. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's definitely a class system on a movie set, but I really do think that a lot of that just becomes out of a place of necessity. You know what I mean? A lot of the reasons why it's set up like that is because, well, yeah, of course your lead actors are going to be treated differently than the guy who says, "Hey, how much for that gum?" and then he's done. You know, like the day player who has one line. I'm probably going to get some heat for saying this, but like, frankly, they don't require all the attention that a person requires that's in every single scene in the movie, and they've got to be there all day every day for the entire run. So, you know, again, I love the phrase, um, with performance comes privilege, you know, and that goes, that's used on sports teams, that's used, I'm sure, in regular corporate situations. But if you've got a player that's really going to do a lot of great things for your team, in this case being a movie, yeah, they're going to get some extra privileges. And I think that a lot of that comes with, and all these phrases are becoming unpopular as time goes on. But that's
Sure.
called paying your dues. You know, people get afraid. People fear the term paying your dues. They see it as like some form of abuse, but it's not,
Patriarchy.
man. Yeah, I mean, it's really it's called like climbing your way up the ladder, as they say. Like, you know, like you said, man, I remember being a background actor. If you didn't know this about me, I started out being a background actor, non-union, just showing up to cattle calls. And yeah, I remember like getting fed like, you know, the cheap sandwiches when then you go see everybody have prime rib in the SAG
Right.
line or whatever. And you know what? In a way, I mean, I didn't say, how come I don't get any prime rib? No, I used it as a motivating tactic, and I said, "Fuck, man, I want to be in that SAG prime rib line. How do I get my ass in that line?" And I worked hard to get myself to the SAG status, so I can take part in those perks. So it's easy to be a day one person and be like, "Well, I just showed up. How come I don't have all this stuff?" It's like, well, you just showed up. Work for a year, work for 2 years, then you'll get the nice food, then you'll get the benefits, then you'll get to sign your paperwork out first. So you know, yeah, but that stuff shouldn't make you angry. Here's another thing that I do. Ready? This is another weird, very weird thing. When someone's doing something that bothers me, I tend to take my big toe and I drive my big toe into my shoe to the
Okay.
point where I'm almost bending my toe to where it hurts. And
Ouch.
I'm like literally sitting there grinding my toe into my foot. Sometimes I'll tap my toe incessantly like this in my shoe. Good thing I don't wear fucking sandals ever, because
Yeah.
you'd really know what's up. But it's a weird thing I do. Maybe it'll help you, but if someone's pissing you off, I fucking drive my toe into my shoe and smile. And they don't even know it, but I'm actually like, my toe is about to rip out of the bottom of my shoe because I'm grinding it so much. But up here, as far as everything you can see, I'm cool as a cucumber. But if you were to look at a cross section of my shoe and you could see like inside, you'd see my big toe like curled up. And so I don't know, man. I use it as a way to kind of just like I'm redirecting the pain in my body,
It's your toe.
like from your face into my toe, and it probably preserves me from doing something crazy. Let's talk about something that I know it's wacky.
This might be the
Let's
crazy thing, Tommy. We're gonna have to start a hashtag for Tommy's toe. I think, I mean, it sounds like what you're doing here is like you're putting the physical pain into your toe to get away from the emotional pain of dealing with whatever asshole person you're dealing with. So
it is.
there's a level of genius in there, but there's also a level of nihilism, if that's the word.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, I can't deal with this. I gotta
I
get my mind off of it.
That's great.
Um, all right, let's talk about something that I think is probably more prevalent now than ever.
Okay,
They say don't drive angry, right?
sure.
Well, I'm a big proponent in don't text angry.
Okay.
Text messages have gotten me in some trouble in the past. Not legal trouble, nothing crazy. I never said anything fucking weird, okay? I'm not talking about that shit.
Yeah.
But there have been many times in my life when I've reacted very quickly to a text message and shot something out that might be a little coarse, that might be a little abrasive. And then literally within seconds of hitting send, what do we all do? I don't know if we all do this, but I do this. Sometimes you go back and you reread what you just said, and within seconds, I'm like, whew, that was a little hot.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you find yourself backpedaling and having to send another message to see, oh, are they upset with me because of this or whatever. So don't text angry. um Here's the thing about text messages, guys, and they live forever. There's always going to be a record of that text. You got to be careful. There's a lot of screenshotting motherfuckers out there
Yeah, we know a
that
few,
are,
don't we?
yeah,
You
I
know,
know
yeah.
a handful of them. You always got to be leery, guys. If somebody is corresponding with you and they send you a screenshot of someone else's text that they send you as a reference to some crazy shit they said, you might want to remind yourself that that person is liable to screenshot you as well someday. So
Yep.
that being said, just be careful, guys. Like, I really mean this. And even with my close friends, I try to text everyone in such a way that if they were to screenshot me and post it on Facebook and say, look what Tommy DiNucci just texted me,
Yeah.
I could hold my head up high and not be like, yikes. And listen, if you go back 5, 10 years ago when I used to be a little crazy, man, there's probably some text messages floating around there that could put me in fucking jail. Not real jail, but anger jail. I
Right.
used to, say some. I used to get a little hot, and I just learned that, like, there's no point in that. You're never going to get someone on your side with an abrasive text message. They're only now going to have evidence forever
Right.
that you had a little breakdown, and now they got it on tape, so to speak.
Well, it goes back to that Christian Bale incident, buddy, which was a big thing. I don't think it terribly affected one way or the other Christian Bale's career. In fact, in some ways you can say, well, geez, at least he's committed to the craft of acting if he's going to go off like that. But
But the text messages, bud, we're talking text messages.
well, so as far as text message, it's well, you mentioned audio recording, and that's what Bale had, but the text messages, we see a lot of that. You'll see people, even random people on Facebook, will. I actually think it's pretty disrespectful because a lot of that information could be taken out of context, and I tend to think that the person who's screenshotting a series of text messages, they're not providing the context, they're not allowing the other person to give their side of the story in real time. And to me, it's a betrayal of privacy. Now, granted, there could be some situations where that's not the case. And especially if you have people that are reaching out to minors for bad situations, then yeah, screenshot them. But to me, I think it makes both parties look bad. I think the person that shares, oh my God, this person said this to me, and I'm going to put it on Facebook or Instagram. I think that makes the person, I'm not going to trust that person either, the one that's sharing the information, because I don't know if they've given the full story here. Maybe they wrote something that provoked this response from the other individual, and who knows. So but I think you're making a big overarching point, Tommy, which is when you put things in writing in 2024, you're setting yourself up. You can't trust everybody. You can't trust anybody in some regard, and it's too bad. But cancel culture is a real thing. Gotcha society is a real thing, and that's the world we're living in. So for people that have a tendency to get angry, you gotta watch out.
You do. You gotta be careful because, listen, it might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be 3 months from now. But these text messages, they're there forever, man. Like, if someone's pissed at you a year from now, they could dig some shit up and be like, "Oh, remember he said this?" Here's a fun little story I'm going to tell you, and maybe you can use this to help you because I've tried this strategy before. We're going to talk about a very famous president that we all know so well. Well, we don't personally know him, but Abraham Lincoln. Everybody knows Abraham Lincoln. He's on Rushmore. He had a really interesting tactic that he would utilize. When Abraham Lincoln passed away after his assassination, um, they went into his desk and they opened up his desk and they started going through all of his belongings. And they found dozens and dozens of handwritten letters, scathing handwritten letters to people that he was very upset with. And he would write this scathing fucking letter. He would fold it up, he'd put it in an envelope, and he'd put it in his desk. And people close to him said, well, yeah, those are all the angry letters that he had that he didn't send. And his thing would be, I'm going to write the letter, all pissed off, emotional. I'm going to put it away. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to wait a day. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to reread this letter. And if I'm still this angry, I'm going to send it to the person. But more often than not, Honest Abe took that letter, folded it up, and said, I was probably a little hot about that one. I got a little too fired up. And he would place it back in his desk, and that letter would never get sent. So maybe what we could do as a tactic, if someone really fucking pisses you off, maybe you go into your notes on your phone or in your computer. Maybe you write the angry message. Maybe you tell them everything you'd like them to fucking know about what a piece of shit you think they are, or why they wronged you, or how they hurt you. Write it, get it out, and then wait a day and read that shit tomorrow. And I almost can guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, tomorrow you're going to read that and be like, okay, let me take my foot off the pedal a little bit, because we're people and we're emotional. And sometimes you just got to wait a little while and let that heat simmer down, brother.
Well, Tommy, I'm laughing. I don't know if you remember, but I told you a couple of years ago that someone had told me that story of Abe Lincoln and the letters, but either they forgot to give me the ending where he didn't actually send the letters, or I conveniently forgot that part of the story. So I would actually write the 3 or 5 page email to the girl that shunned me at the prom or whatever happened, and I would just go ahead and send it right away.
Oh no. That's
And this,
the biggest part. They really screwed you over.
like I said, they might have mentioned that, or maybe I edited out of the lesson, but I thought you were supposed to get all your emotions on paper and send it to them, and that would make you feel better because you had this cleansing experience and you told someone how you really felt about them and all the injustices. So I went through that process several times, Tommy. I was sending these Shakespearean hate emails of how you screwed me over and why and how that made me feel, and I did that several times before. I think the same person said, "Wait a minute, you're actually sending those emails?" And I said, "Yeah, isn't that what I'm supposed to do?" They said, "No, the whole point is he didn't send them." And so there you go, buddy. I I was a little bit late to the lesson of Honest Abe.
Well, listen, it's a good lesson. It's a good way to exercise some of those emotions out of your body. Let's see what's up with everybody here. Stephen E says that's it. I think he was talking about not dealing with morons. Paul Ionati, my famous 2 words is who cares? And you know what, Paul? You're right on the money with that, because how many times have we had an argument with somebody and then literally like a day or 2 later, it's so irrelevant and you find yourself just wasting so much time. Um,
Hey,
Laza, what's up, Laza? Good day good day all from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. That's my accent. It's not good. You can hammer me for it. Tommy, did anyone tell you that you needed a haircut? You know, it's kind of funny. Here's what the deal with having such short hair, and I
yeah.
don't want to make this a whole episode on my hair, but like I can already see significant growth. I got this cut last Wednesday and it's only been like 6 days. And like, man, the shorter it is, it's almost like the more you need haircuts. Like I feel like I need a haircut every 10 days now. So maybe the low maintenance isn't as low maintenance as I thought.
Tommy, how
Um,
did was it Gianna who gave you this haircut, or how did you get this
yeah,
haircut?
this was Gianna. Gianna gave me this haircut. She's a whiz with the buzzers. And of course, Gina was there for moral support. I had a team, guys. There's a team. It takes 2 people to manage my hair. It's not just a one person deal. Paul says, good advice on texting, Tommy. Brother, I appreciate it. It only comes from years
Oh
of
God.
sending bad text messages out. Laza says, I'm a screenshot and mother effer. Well, Laza, that doesn't shock me. Paul Inati says, Mike with the good advice too. And
Thanks, buddy.
Laza says, Mike, you should make a horror movie together called I Know What You Text Messaged Last Summer. I'll tell you what, that would probably be a hit with the Gen Z kids. I mean, I don't even think, do kids under 25 even speak anymore? I think it's all just like, even I think everything is just text based, even like in person.
I've had a few situations, going to SeaWorld last November in particular, was trying to get in there with my, season pass, and the kid, taking the tickets was trying to tell me and my friend something, but my friend had to say, "What are you saying?" Because the kid was so, maybe a 19-year-old kid was so inarticulate, like trying to tell us something about our tickets not working, but couldn't
And
actually get
couldn't
the
make
words.
yeah,
Yeah,
couldn't perform a proper sentence to
couldn't
tell
get.
another human like this is why this doesn't work.
Yeah,
It's
and
sad, man.
there are exceptions. I gotta say this, Tommy. As much as we complain about the youth, there's a lot of kids out there that are working at the Taco Bells, the movie theaters, and they're doing just fine. So I don't want to get too cynical on the kids these days. They're doing
Taco
okay.
Bells and movie theaters.
What else do
They're
you
just,
need?
they're just really just running society. So let's talk about some other things that you can do if you're getting a little heated, and let's make it more specific about a movie set. Because remember, I really mean this, guys. Like being angry is addicting. It can be addicting. It can spread. Anger can spread like a yawn. You know how when you start yawning, everybody can start yawning around you? Well, if you start acting pissed off about some shit, there's a good chance you're going to infect everybody around you. And suddenly the trickle down of anger is going to flood the whole fucking place. So if you're really mad, and we don't always have the ability to do this because we might be locked into a certain situation, but the old walk away thing, just walk away, that there is some truth to that. And now I don't mean it doesn't mean that it's got to be dramatic. Doesn't mean you got to be in an argument with someone and be like, "I'm walking away," and you turn and you leave. But like if you know that someone's going to agitate you, don't put your hand in the fire. We have a tendency sometimes when we see a flame, we want to be like, "Oh, is it hot? Is
Right.
it? How hot is it?" If you know someone pisses you off, if you know someone doesn't vibe with you, or almost every time you guys encounter each other at the lunch table, or every time they're, smoking cigarettes where you like to smoke cigarettes, whatever, just avoid people that you know are going to be poisonous to you. Try to avoid them. Here's the deal, and it's so hard for us to learn this, and it took me forever, and I still have trouble with this. But not everyone's going to like you. And it really sucks, and I wish it wasn't the case, but like sometimes people just like Japanese fighting fish, you put them in the same tank, one of them's going to eat the other one before the end of the day. And they just don't vibe, and it's awful and it sucks. But that's also part of being an adult. Like you just got to understand that, like, all right, these are my people. These aren't my people. Stick around your people. And if you can't, like I said, sometimes it's a work situation where it's unavoidable. You can't get away from them. Try to check out mentally. Get away from them mentally, meaning don't register that the things are getting you angry, because if you register that something is making you upset, agitated, angry, frustrated, people are terrible. If someone knows something pisses you off, they might actually want to do it just to get the rise out of you. And like what Mike's doing, press that button. So that's why, like, sometimes, in the wrestling business, to use a wrestling term that Lazo will get all excited and Stephen E will get excited about, don't sell it.
Right.
The idea of selling, meaning like reacting to something. Well, if someone's, making you angry, don't sell it, because that's going to make the other person want to poke you even more.
Tommy, all these lessons are really great. I think one thing that's interesting is that some of these lessons of, or cliches of, walk away and stuff like that, or just dealing with the people that you like to deal with, they are challenged by the very institution of filmmaking or entertainment production, because like I said earlier, a lot of times you're put on these teams, or you're in part of a team that you don't choose, you don't get to choose. And so when people say, "Oh, well, just only work with people you like," well, if you're an actor or if you're a crew member, you're not necessarily getting to choose all your collaborators. And sometimes you literally are in a situation, to say the word literally, but you're in a situation where you're on a set which is miles away from other things. You have to be there all day. You're not allowed to leave the set and come and go as you please. Some of these answers of like, give yourself physical space from the person that you're not getting along with, those can be a challenge, because a lot of times you can't, and I've seen situations, and I've been in situations, Tommy, where there might be another cast member or another crew member, or I see I remember we were doing the Disregard the Vampire piece where there was some people that didn't get along with each other, and here I am trying to direct this movie, and it's also trying to navigate that there are crew members that are butting heads. So some of this stuff is a challenge, and film specific, like you said earlier, Tommy, the whether it's $100,000 budget or a $10 budget or $1 million budget, there are going to be conflicts, and there's going to be the human factor, the human element, and that all this stuff can be a challenge. And I think people just have to do the best they can. And in a way, Tommy, that's why when a film is made, I'm always impressed, even if I don't like the particular film. If someone went out there, they had a game plan, they had a script, they got actors, they got cameras, they got an editor, and they actually started something and finished it. Even if the movie stinks, I give that team credit for finishing what they started, because it's not easy.
Here's another one. All right, so tactics to help with the anger. And I hope that you have a friend at work. But I think that sometimes it's important to tell someone that you trust. Make sure that you trust them. Make sure you don't think it's someone that's going to go tattling on you. But, if someone's bothering you, or if more importantly, something bothered you, sometimes it's nice to go to maybe that most trusted friend on set, take them aside, and just tell them what happened. And sometimes it's helpful just to get it out and vent it out. And sometimes that friend might tell you, "Hey, Mike, you know what? I know you're upset, but that's not really that big of a deal. I know you're pissed, but like, just let you gotta let that one go." You know what I mean? And sometimes just hearing that from someone that you trust, that's a friendly, that's enough to make you breathe and be like, all right, he's right. This isn't that big of a deal. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't keep it pent up. If you can kind of get some of that out and have someone else, bounce it back to you and be like, "Oh, yeah, Tommy, it's not that big of a deal. Hey, I know you're upset because so and so was late, but they were only 10 minutes late, and hair and makeup wasn't even ready for them by the time they showed up, so we didn't end up losing anything. Let that one go." Sometimes we need a friend or a trustworthy person that we trust. Well, obviously we trust them if they're trustworthy, but we just need that extra voice to reassure us that, all right, don't fucking lose your shit over this, okay? It's not worth it.
Tommy, as you were talking, for some reason, my mind kind of floated, and I wouldn't mind doing this as a topic for a future episode, but communication is such a big thing, and the failure of communication affected a film set, I think, in November of 2022. And it's a sad case, the Rust case, where unfortunately the director of photography was accidentally killed. And the armorer, I believe, is actually going to jail because of that, because she did not properly have the bullets were not blanks, they were real bullets. And of course, the famous actor Alec Baldwin, he's going to go to trial too. And so when I think of anger, Tommy, that carelessness is kind of part of that. There's so many things that can go in there where if people aren't doing their jobs, and if they don't take the things responsibility seriously, we're talking life and death at some point in some of these situations. So people have to really have their shit together. And I would not mind if we did an episode on set safety again and talked about the Rust situation, because I think it is important and it's a sad situation. And Tommy, I've seen you in action on set, and I give you a lot of credit. We've had this situation talked about off camera, but there was a movie where you were not the director, but you were kind of you kind of made yourself the emergency director in a situation, and I was actually the actor that was on screen at the time, and I was really impressed with how you handled the situation. It was very stressful for me as an actor because our director was not available due to his own emotional state to direct the scene, and you had to step in and take over the reins. And you were very zen-like in your approach to a scene that was a tense scene. It was actually an assault scene of acting, and I thought you did a great job. And I told you that, I think, immediately, or maybe the next day, that I was like, "Hey, man, you really came through for me as an actor." So I further solidified my respect for you professionally, that situation. So I've seen situations where, buddy, even the director has lets anger get the better of him in that situation. So these things can really be intense, and I don't want to diminish what we're talking about here, because the film world, yes, people can complain about Hollywood and all that stuff, but the reality is everybody who complains about Hollywood sits at home and Netflixes and chills for 50 hours a week too. So this stuff is still important, even though people can disregard it.
Yeah, and I think another thing to talk about, back to your communication point, is if something does make you upset that a person's doing, then I think, like an adult, you have to, it's kind of your job to take them aside and let them know, like, hey, man, or hey, pal, hey, whatever. When you are late to set, it really upsets me. Or when you are whatever, when you don't call set, let me say you're the camera operator. If you don't say set when you're set, I don't know when you're ready, and it makes me look like an idiot, and I'm just standing here waiting around. You got to say set. My point is, if something bothers you, you kind of do have to calmly communicate that to the person, because there is the other side of it where maybe they don't know that it bothers you. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, like, person, it might even be like something as simple as like, oh, this guy calls me a chummy name that I don't like, and it pisses me off. And every time he calls me that, it pisses me off. Well, you know what? It's kind of up to you to respectfully tell them, like, hey, could you not call me Big Jim anymore? Just call me Tom. Whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, so as adults, I think we do need to kind of, I'm not talking about drawing a line in the sand or any cowboy shit like that, but if something's bothering you before it becomes a thing, let the person know that you don't really like that. And I think that that's your responsibility to, again, manage anger, because it's almost like, what do they say? Like, sometimes fire prevention is what it's all about. It's not about firefighting, it's about fire prevention and doing the things that we can do to make sure fires don't start before they even have to.
Yeah, Tommy, I remember I was an extra on a Richard Gere movie, Jason Alexander, and it was filmed in Woonsocket. It was called Hotchki or Hachiko. It was about the dog and his master.
Directed by Lassie Hallstrom, very famous director who directed What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Yep. Well, the person that earned my respect on that set, buddy, was actually the first AD. And this was 15 years ago, and I'm still thinking about it. The first assistant director, I never knew his name, but he had this very zen like calming presence, and he did his job so well. And there was even a person who literally snuck onto set and tried to sneak in to be a background actor just because this person from Woonsocket wanted to see what a movie was like. And they were lying and basically saying that they were a hired background actor and they weren't. And this first AD clearly saw through this bullshit and handled it so well and didn't make a big scene, didn't humiliate the person. It was obvious they were lying. It was obvious they just wanted to be involved, but he handled it very professionally and but did not waver and did not waste a lot of time. And Tommy, it's interesting that even 15 years later, I can still remember whoever that first AD was a real pro. And talk about a pressure spot. The first assistant director to me is the bad cop on a movie set, and that's a really tough job. And talk about where if you have someone who has an anger problem, you don't want them to be a first AD, I would say.
No, I've dealt with some first ADs that most definitely have anger management issues, and it is tough. You do want a cool hand Luke type mentality when you're the first AD. Um, yeah, I think that ultimately what it comes down to is just like finding things that it takes a long time, but once you become an adult, you realize the things that are probably going to bother you, and I think you just got to recognize those things ahead of time and prevent all these things from happening, prevent the frustration from ever even entering. um Another thing that I like to do, is find an outlet. You got to find something that, if I'm really upset about something on set, for example, I'll find something that I can look forward to later to kind of let that out, whether it is, okay, well, things are a little crazy on set, I want to flip out at the entire world today, however, I know that as soon as I wrap, I'm going to go to that restaurant I like with my friends and we're going to get some food, or I'm going to play my video games, or that podcast came out that I really like, or my favorite show's on tonight, I'm going to watch that. Or listen, I'm not condoning drugs and alcohol, but I'm going to have a cocktail when I get out of set tonight. I'm after work, I'm going to have a nice drink, I'm going to calm down, or I'm going to light that joint up. I got a joint in my glove box right now with my name on it. And as soon as we wrap, I'm going to spark that thing up, and suddenly everything's going to be a lot more relaxed. And listen, again, let's talk about marijuana for a second. I have found that there have been many times in my life when I've been really upset about something and I smoked a little pot, and literally after like 2 hits, I'll say to myself, man, that really wasn't all it was cracked up to be as far as getting that upset. Like I probably didn't need to get that upset. Again, I'm not saying you need to drug yourself to come to that realization. All I'm saying is like sometimes maybe it's just a piece of cheesecake, but like sometimes finding things that you like that you can kind of put your mind in. All right, I know I'm upset now, but later I'm going to be doing that thing I like and calming down, and maybe none of this shit will be bothering me anymore. That can sometimes help get you through it.
A friend of mine used to console me and say, "Have a cookie," like because I do like cookies, and like I mean, I remember, Tommy, and you've heard this sob story, that I was actually brought into something to be a volunteer first assistant director on a music video. I was not happy about it. I did not enjoy the process. I did not get along with the director. Uh, and I felt like he wasn't listening to me and my concerns for safety. And it was a big, horrible mess. And a friend of mine who I brought into the project as an actor, used that line on me, "Have a cookie," because he knew that I was not having a good day. And that's the other thing, Tom. Sometimes we just have to learn through experience. I think that society maybe is steering away from that, unfortunately. Sometimes it's okay to get your fingernails dirty and your hair wet, or take some bumps, take some pratfalls, because how are you going to learn in real world experience, especially in the movie world? You can't live with helicopter parents protecting you from every windstorm. You have to go out there and take some hits and have some bad experiences, and learn and grow. And the iron strengthens iron and all those cliches, but it's true. You have to get out there and learn this stuff sometimes.
You do, and ultimately, don't be upset. What are you upset for? Here's the thing too. I think that you got to think of it almost like throughout the course of a movie set, like being angry. If you're angry or if you find yourself in bad moods, try not to bring yesterday's bullshit into today. Think of everything like a batting average. A baseball player could go 0 for 4 one night, right? They didn't get a hit. They struck out a couple times. But the next night they could go 4 for 4. They could get 4 hits, and suddenly like that made up for yesterday. Yesterday wasn't so bad because you get yourself 4 hits today. So it's kind of like just try to like start over the next day. Don't bring that negativity onto set. We just talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago. I had a dust up with Peter Green. My Peter Green dust up situation. The next day, I went to set with a smile on my face, and me and Peter were busting balls and smoking cigarettes, and everything was fine. Had I came in with an attitude and acting like the Incredible Sulk, not to be confused with the Incredible Hulk, but the Incredible Sulk, if I'm just kind of like angry, sad, angry, now that shit's coming in, it's carrying over into the next day, and now you get a real problem. So if there is a flare up, try to just keep it isolated to that day, move on, don't bring it into the next day. All right, guys, I think that kind of wraps it up for anger management. I think the overall, if we could kind of highlight it, remember, don't argue with people that you don't think you're ever going to be able to change. There's no sense in that. Be careful what you text, because that shit lives forever, and you might not mean it tomorrow. You might not mean what you said in 5 minutes. So
Right.
just chill with the text messages. Obviously, same goes for emails. Don't be writing any long diatribes to people. And just remember that, tomorrow, it's all going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine tomorrow. So, like, you might be upset today, but the sun's gonna rise tomorrow, and all this bullshit's gonna sort itself out eventually.
What was that song? The song, "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow." Was that from Annie? Annie the musical?
That's right, baby. Annie knew what was up. She was pissed off. Annie could have easily gotten fucking angry and killed every last one of those fuckers in the orphanage, and she didn't. She kept her shit controlled, and she knew that the sun would come out tomorrow. Or is it going to come up? I think it's going to come up tomorrow. Um, Real quick, guys, before I go, my new web series, The Florist, which I'm really excited about, is coming out next week. Next week, we're going to be talking all about The Florist. We're going to be telling you where you can get it, how you can get it. It's a little unique, guys. I'm putting this show out on my Patreon channel. It's a Patreon page, which is basically a kind of a tailor-made custom platform for creators who can really just put their content directly out. I don't got to worry about some big old mean, angry sales distribution guy in a shirt and tie taking all my money, okay? Because I've put a lot of movies out in the past. And guys, the distributors, they're there with their hands ready to take that money and put it in their pocket. Patreon allows the creatives to kind of put their product right out to the market. And the only challenge is it requires an extra step. You got to go on Patreon and you've got to make an account. Now, listen, if you've got an email address, it's the same thing as creating, signing up for Gmail. They're going to ask you your name. You're going to give them an email. You're going to set a password and you're in. So it's free. It doesn't cost anything to sign up. And you can actually subscribe to my page for free. And then when The Florist comes out next week, it'll be available on my store to download for $1.99, $2, guys. You can't even buy a cup of coffee for $2 anymore. So it's very affordable, and I can't wait to tell you all about it next week.
Hey, Tommy, before next week, I did have a question about The Florist. Is that a 4-episode series, 6 episodes?
This
One
is a
episode?
pilot episode. It's
Okay.
your standard 24-minute episode. Kind of like you'd be watching a sitcom.
Okay, and maybe to jump ahead a little bit next week, but is the idea, if the feedback is positive for the pilot episode, is this a project you'd like to pursue into a series or what?
Mike, we're gonna save it for next week, brother.
Gee whiz.
We're gonna get into it all next week on And Action. I'm gonna tell you my whole plans for The Florist, and I can't wait because a lot of great actors, and we've talked about a lot of them on the show before. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Please turn on that notification bell. I'm over on Instagram at Tom DiNucci if you want to throw me a follow and say hey over there. Mike is also a very talented artist. If you haven't checked out his paintings, you should. Mike, hold up a painting if you got one.
Yeah, I do, buddy. No, I got a couple
Mike,
right here.
All right, well, I'll shill for you. You don't have to shill for yourself.
No, I got them.
So yeah, Mike creates a lot of his own original artwork. If you're looking for a Mike Messier original, hey, there's a guy smoking a joint, trying to come down from some anger management right there. Check out Mike's very unique style, very unique usage of colors. All of these paintings are available. Where can they get them, Mike? Tell them where they can get them.
I sell them in the here's a smoking guy. The eBay store, The Foreign Object, and on Facebook it's The Foreign Object, Mikey's Store of Stuff. And Tommy, I'm also happy to say that this past weekend, me and my judge Kazuya Akizawa went through all those films for the All Comedy Short Film Festival, which will be May 18th in Atlantic Beach, Florida. And the winning films are being announced today, basically. So if people go to the website, allshortfilms.com, they can see the announcement of winners and another film festival added to my repertoire, buddy. So I appreciate the shout out to my artwork. And this has been a fun show.
I like that one. I like that pink guy smoking a big blunt.
There you go, man. So
we appreciate it. Control your anger. Don't be so angry all the time, guys.
Well, Tommy, this has been a fun episode, and MikeMessier.com, and looking forward to see The Florist, and it's going to be a very fun episode next week.
We'll see you next week, guys.